Okay.
We're here.
We're here. Oh, you got your notes? Okay, good.
Well, I got a couple of notes. I was going to actually do more notes, but I had car trouble this morning, and I'm not in a good mood, just so you'll know.
What's wrong with it?
My mood?
Well, we know what's wrong with your mood. What's wrong with your truck? I
You
could
know,
never get that out of you. Was it the ignition?
if I knew
battery?
if I knew it'd be running now
But you got here from Newcastle to Auburn.
with a borrowed truck.
Oh, you never said you borrowed a truck. Oh,
Well,
okay.
you didn't ask. Anyway,
I just assumed you got it to start.
no, I didn't.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yes, it is, and I'm really getting. And all my chainsaws are in the shop. I got.
That means
wood
you're gonna have
cut.
to get it towed into the shop.
I'm not doing that again. I had it towed last week, and I'm not. I can't afford to have my. I'm driving around on
who
a
are you
tow truck now. I mean, the mileage on a tow truck is really bad, you know.
I know. Who are you gonna get to come out?
I'll get John Bailey to come out. And
Oh,
take
so
a
you're
look
gonna
at
get one of those guys who'll come to your place and
it. Well, I
work
don't know.
on it.
No, he works for me. He maybe he knows something about cars. I hope. Anyway, either I got to buy another.
Back in the
truck.
old days, there's this guy who used to. You could hire him. Let's say your car broke down somewhere, he'd go right to that
They
spot.
used to do that. Yeah, mobile repair.
Mobile repair. Do they still have that?
I think. I'll look around because I'm going to need one. And
I mean, that's a good job enterprise right there.
well, the problem with that truck is it just quits. But when it quits, the lights go out, the engine quits running, the power brakes, power steering, and the power brakes go out, and that's okay in the day. Well, it's not okay, but if it happens at night, that can be fatal.
That's your horse,
That's my horse.
and you can't get anywhere without that horse.
No, I can't. I got to do something. I'm getting tired of putting money out in vehicles. Anyway, I would like to say that we're going to talk about light. Well, so far it hasn't been too heavy. I'm just getting tired of talking about gloomy stuff. But I can't.
That was my thought too.
Yeah, and I think people need to laugh. That's why I'm going to write the column. I try and make people smile or laugh. I've had people comment on that when I see them on the street. But at any rate, Frank or Daz?
Isn't that kind of the yin and yang? You need the laughter and the sadness.
Well, speaking of yin and yang, there's you and then there's me.
Frickin' frack.
Frickin' frack.
Romulus and Remus.
And here's the thing about
Abbott and
this.
Costello.
Frank, excuse me, was
Sorry.
I talking while you were interrupting again? Again?
You were.
Okay, well, anyway, Frank and I have a different. How old are you? It doesn't matter. You're
None of
about,
your-
what, 15 years younger than I am, right?
None of your business.
Okay, well, you're younger. He's actually.
I normally would say my age, but the IRS could be watching, and just there's a bunch of weirdos out there. So
That's
let
true.
them guess.
That's true. So anyway, but Frank actually looks about 25 years younger than me, but that's because Frank has led kind of a cultured life. You know, he's sat behind his easel painting, doing wonderful paintings.
I
Whereas
love what I do.
and I love what I guess I love what I do. Anyway, and I've spent my life crawling around under houses, on roofs, cutting trees down. It's just been a different lifestyle. Not only that, we have a different origins. East LA in the woods.
I can usually tell when you've been to one of those
which
underground basements, because when you come in here, you're usually pretty ripe. You
Yeah.
smell it pretty ripe. I never say that, but you smell
So
like
now the truth comes out.
you smell like the basement.
Well,
And I smell like oil paint. My wife
All
comes
I
in.
can say is like they used to screw you and your horse and both your dogs.
I love you too.
Yeah,
But
all
my
right.
wife comes in here and she goes, God, don't you smell that? And I go, no. She goes, it smells like oil paint.
So now oh, I see what you're saying. No, I was going to say now your wife says I stink.
No, what I'm saying
Oh,
is
okay.
we're oblivious to the conditions we work in. I've had people walk into the studio and turn around and go, what's going on? Because I can't stand the smell. And I'm like,
You know,
it smells like oil paint in here.
it's funny about that. I was next to the smoke shop here not too long. Well, it's been a while ago.
True.
And there's a hairdressers right next. They do nails and hair.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she came out and we were next to a smoke shop about 40 feet away, I think. And this woman wanted to bitch about something. So I was talking to this guy and she says, are you going to be out there smoking very long? I can smell your cigarette smoke. Well, she left her door open. And that was a mistake because when I walked past her, I walked through and I said, good God, you people are all breathing fumes in here. Do you ever smell this place?
That nail polish fume is horrific.
Yes, God awful. And I said, you going to shut that door anytime soon? So anyway, she doesn't like me anymore.
Well, you got her back.
Oh yeah, I always get people back eventually.
Got even.
You got it. I always, revenge is a wonderful thing. You don't believe in revenge, do you?
Justice. It's called justice.
You call it what you want. I like
Retribution, justice,
it.
getting even, getting square.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that.
Okay.
So anyway, we come from a different point of view and a different origins. Or I mean, not a different point of view, a different origins and a different lifestyle. So
The barrio
that's
to the country.
Yeah. And that's why I look about 30 years older than he does, because I have had a hell of a lot harder life than he has.
You didn't grow up with any air conditioning. Well, actually, I didn't either.
I didn't come up there, and I didn't grow up with any air with electricity. All right. So anyway, that's the difference between us. But here's the thing: we always come out about on the same point. Frank claims he's brought this up before, but I don't know whether he has or not. The other day I was watching television. Oh no, actually just yesterday. And there is in Chicago, I think it's Chicago. It's one of the foreign countries I've never been to, Chicago or Washington D.C. I'm not sure. I'm never going to go there. Never been there, and I have no chance of going.
You'd like D.C.
Why?
Because of the Smithsonian, the National Gallery, the Lincoln Monument,
Was there good stuff there too?
Jefferson Monument.
Besides the crime?
Well, just you have to stay within the vicinity of the mall.
Oh, in
once
other
you
words,
go outside of the mall towards Georgetown and neighboring communities, it gets a little.
Okay. Well,
it's the wilds.
There was a lady, a colored lady on, I don't know, does it say colored or black? What do you say now?
Black.
Black.
Person of color. If you want to generalize, it's person of color.
A person of color.
POC.
She was on television the other day, and she says, we are so outraged. I think it was Chicago. We are so outraged in Chicago. You know what? I've been voting a Democrat my entire life, for Democrats. But the reason people do that, you know, Washington, when he was in office, which is a long time ago, he did not approve of political parties. It happened. It evolved. It's going to, or it was going to, because people have different opinions. But she says she's voted for Democrats her entire life, and everybody she knows has. And why do they do that? Why do they do that?
She's in the cult.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, my daddy voted Democrat.
Man, right. My pappy was smart.
My great-granddaddy voted Democrat. But why have they been doing that for so many years? Because you got to stop and think at some point in time. I think it's finally occurring to them. The Democratic Party has done nothing for them. Go back to the Civil War. Was it a Democrat that freed the slaves? No, it wasn't. Of course, parties were different in those days. But nonetheless, it was the Democrat that did that. And after the war, then you have
which war? One or two?
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm talking about. You see, I go back for the Civil War.
Oh, so you're going.
I'm going way back.
I forgot you mentioned Washington. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
I should take the wax out of my ear.
Yeah. So anyway, they were actually freed by a Republican. Whether he was the kind of Republican they got now, I don't know. But nonetheless, that was a Republican. And then after the Civil War,
Honest Abe, in case you're wondering.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but after the war, then you had so many different things happen. I mean, I read about that. You know, we've had the Ku Klux Klan, who were incidentally, were they Democrats? I think they were.
Yes, they were.
Yes, and then you had equal
Jim Crow.
Jim Crow. Then we had equal but separate. That was, I believe, Democratic.
Separate but equal.
Separate but equal. I had it backwards. Okay.
Same thing.
Same thing. But I don't see a Republican tag on any of those events that happened. And then you go further forward, and you got to remember, and this was kind of.
And you had all that what do they call it, redlining, where blacks were not allowed to build houses in certain parts of town, so
right.
they zoned it so they would put the black neighborhoods right by, let's say, an oil refinery or by a cemetery.
Or like they did the Indians here, where they put them on a rock pile. So grow corn there.
Yeah, you essentially zoned it so they were in the worst part of town.
Yep.
And especially during the jazz era, you couldn't play in certain clubs because they beat the crap out of you. So
that's why the Indians are stuck on an Indian Hill, because they gave them that for their reservations.
Right.
You can't do anything up there. It's nothing but rocks.
You white people, I tell you, you and your zoning laws.
But at any rate, there was one kind of heartbreaking story they did on a kind of a reenactment, not a reenactment, a little news blurb, and that little black gal that tried to get into school, and they had to have the National Guard come out.
Was that Arkansas?
Yeah, it was George Wallace's state. He was.
George Wallace was Alabama.
Well, whatever. That's where it was. Anyway,
okay.
where it was, because George Wallace tried.
It was a southern state.
Southern Democrat. Yeah, that's who
right.
did it. Anyway, and George Wallace, after he got shot and crippled, then he changed his mind, decided, well, maybe this wasn't the way to go. But at that time, he was. So you take it all the way forward. And Frank, I'm sure, knows more about this because he does a lot of reading. What I wanted to cover is things that I didn't read about, but I actually saw. Let's go back to, I think it was 1940-41. President Roosevelt, was he a Democrat?
Yes.
Yes, he was. Anyway, the war had just started, and so what did Roosevelt do? He ordered, with maybe his little pen or whatever, he ordered all the Japanese Americans, and I don't mean they were Japanese Americans moving from Japan. Citizens. He ordered them taken up. And I worked with, I know this was close enough to my current time that I could understand it, or I would knew who I was talking to. Mr. Saladana, we did a little show about Newcastle. And after all these years, and this is only about 5 or 6 years ago, Gerald Saladana is a lot older than me, so he saw this. And when he talks about it, even today, he gets choked up talking about it, because what they did is the military came out here and said, you Japanese people are all going to get on that bus at 1 o'clock in Newcastle. Well, the problem was, I mean, that wasn't the problem, but these were all Americans, American citizens born here. They were fruit growers. They were very prosperous in the Newcastle area. This was probably not the only spot.
Newcastle is about 2-3 miles from here.
Yeah. And what they did was they loaded them up, forcefully loaded all the Japanese kids, adults, ladies, everybody. Loaded them on a bus in Saladana that he watched his friends. These were his friends. There were a lot of Japanese people in that area because they're all fruit growers. He watched all of his friends being loaded on a bus and taken away. Well, was it, oh, we're going to do that for your own good. We don't want to make sure nobody hurts you.
To
so
keep you safe and secure.
Keep you safe and secure. You heard that lately? Oh yeah, we're going to keep you safe and secure. They loaded them on a bus. But it gets worse. What they did was they loaded them on a bus, and you would think that, you know, after the war was all over, Roosevelt, it's a bit, as some of his writings have showed.
Where did they send them to?
Tule Lake was one.
Because in Southern California, where I lived, where they have the Santa Anita racetrack,
yeah,
that was a concentration camp.
Yeah,
where they have the big racetrack. But up here, where was it again?
Tule Lake was one. There was a couple of places around here somewhere.
Okay.
But here's the worst part: they took everything they had, all their life's work.
Great, we got another diesel truck.
Willow Creek.
The fire truck. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, anyway, they took everything they had, but the worst part of it was you would think right after the war they'd have quit doing that, but no. This went on until 1947. After the war, they kept them there for a long time. And the other thing was that there are people. My grandma was one.
They were literally in cages.
And Saladana was his family. There were families in this area who loved those Japanese people because there was their community.
Yeah.
And they kept their ranches going. They kept them operating until they could finally come back. But not all families were like that. I will tell you one family. I won't mention a name, but they were right here in Auburn. And what they did is I know the family that lost everything. I'm not going to mention them either, but they lost everything. When they came back, it was gone because the other family took all their stuff, took it, kept it, and they still did. That family still.
Was there any kind of legal recourse? Make the papers?
Didn't they do? No, they didn't. Did they do some kind of, like to talk about
reparations?
Reparations.
They did that later, years ago.
Yeah, and not very much. But the thing was, these Japanese had everything taken away from them for years and years and years. And when they came back, they didn't come back whining and crying and hollering and whining, you know. They just went back to work and they went and rebuilt themselves as best they could. And there's one family that I know lost everything. The old man, after the war, flew back to Japan, and there was a special rice that he wanted to grow. And so he had to take and smuggle this rice in his socks to bring it back in. It wasn't for him to eat, it was for him to plant, and they gradually built up the rice fields. So they lost everything, and Roosevelt, he just did it. And his cabinet says, well, you can't do that, it's not constitutional, these are American citizens. So I'm going to do it anyway, because I don't like Asians. And he wrote about that earlier before he was the president, did not like Asians. But the cabinet advised against it, he did it anyway, for their own good.
And the kids are taught in grammar school that he was our greatest president.
Oh my God, yes.
Wonderful fireside chats.
Yes.
The Moses.
Little dog Fela.
The Moses of the people. Bring us out of the Depression.
So now I think finally the black folks are beginning to realize, what have they done for us in the last 150 years? What have they done? Anything? Yeah, they've done a lot of stuff.
Well, what they do is every election season they go to that Ebenezer church, MLK's church, and just rile them up on how the Republicans are going to put them in chains, put them back in chains. Yet they're in a different type of chain, don't you think?
Well, they are, because they've done so many different things.
Like you say, what's going on over in Chicago?
Yeah, And they've done so many different things, like, well, they broke up the black family, because, you know, anyway, blacks, what they did was, this not only affected blacks, but whites to a great degree here in California, and maybe elsewhere too. What they started doing is they broke up the family. You know, when I was growing up, I used to know, I worked in Solveig, and it was up in Forest Hills. There were a lot of black, hard working, every damn last one of them, hard working. But they finally got the black women to figure out, well, you know what, you could make more money if we take and be your daddy. But the only thing is, your daddy can't live in a house at the same time as you, but then we'll give you welfare, and then that way you don't need him anymore.
It was all part of that Moynihan plan.
So the government became the daddy.
That's right.
And that broke up the family. And what do you got is, you know, it's pretty well established that single family homes, the kids wind up a lot of times in prison, because you need to have two people raising kids. Not a
God,
village.
That is so right-wing white supremacist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
two women could do a better job than a man and a woman. Come on.
Yeah. But there was a lot of things going. There were things that I saw with my own eyes. Down the street, a couple of doors over, there was a store, and I won't mention the name of the store, because, you know, these people are still, their kids are, I went to school with their kids, you know, the guys that got involved with this, you know, like, but at any rate, one of them, I just never forget that sign. There was a sign over the door, no Japs allowed. You got to remember, things have gone on, and I've seen, and that's important for me.
Well, you know, my uncle was a prisoner of war in Cabanatuan in, what was it, the Philippines. It took him a while to forgive the Japanese.
You mean the Bataan Death March?
Well, no, I'm talking about the prisoner of war camp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and of course he survived the Bataan Death March, but it took him a while. It even took him a while to eat rice.
Yeah, and
because that's what they were given all the time. So then eventually the years, you know, all these things take time. The years kind of went by, and he forgave the Japanese, but you got to if you're going to live your life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just, you know, your unforgiveness is going to destroy you.
Yeah.
But the other day we talked about, can I jump in here?
Oh, please do.
About solutions. I think there are solutions now. You know, besides my Christian faith, I think a lot of people now, especially with media, Twitter, which is now X, and people can now express their freedom. The freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, these were all guaranteed to us in the Constitution by those who are essentially against federalism. You can thank Samuel Adams and Thomas Jefferson and I can't remember the other guy. There were essentially three of them that said, no, we want a Bill of Rights because we don't want to repeat the monarchy again, where the federal government has all the power. We want some power given to the states and given to the individuals. So we have these wonderful Bill of Rights. And the freedom of speech was to be able to criticize, confront, and point out your grievances to the federal government, to the king. And now you have the federal government is pushing back, and they're saying, well, this is misinformation, malinformation. No, the government doesn't get to decide that, because that's what the king decided. He decided what was appropriate speech and what was inappropriate speech. We're going backwards, folks. So, but there's hope, because I see people on the left and the right saying, yeah, canceling and censoring people, that's wrong. It's un-American. But more and more people are being programmed. They're being programmed. They're doing this to your kids. They're being programmed in higher institutions. And now with social emotional learning, DEI or DI, that I like to call it, diversity, inclusion, and equity, they're programming your young children to believe that anything that is outside of what their idea of democracy is, because you're going to hear that all the time, but it's their idea of democracy, is hate speech. So they're redefining hate speech. In fact, there's a bill right now in Chicago. We've been talking about Chicago. They're introducing a bill to call parents child abusers if they will not allow their child to get an abortion, to get puberty blockers, or to not speak their proper pronouns, or not allow them to be transitioned. If that bill goes through, you're redefining the roles of the parents to raise their children, where the state is now taking more and more power. And I guarantee you there are a bunch of those in Chicago who are all for it.
Oh, sure.
Because they've been programmed in the schools. You see all these little kids, they're all doing, the world is falling apart, global warming. They've been groomed, they've been indoctrinated. The word indoctrinated, comes from kind of the Christian roots doctrine, Christian doctrine, resurrection. Indoctrinated is you're teaching them a certain way of thinking, a belief system, a narrative, a worldview. I like to say programming, because these little kids, they don't know any better, and especially if you go up into higher education. I was taught Theodore Roosevelt, great. Woodrow Wilson, great. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, Hoover, bad. Roosevelt, good. Truman, good. Eisenhower, bad. Kennedy, good. Nixon, bad. Do you get this? You're being taught that only the Democrats are good. That's the democracy. That's the democracy. And so when they say history will write it out, no. The Democrats are those who lean towards the left. They're the ones. Come on. There's some honest Democrats out there, because I've talked to you. You see what's happening. And most of you, there's part of America that's, we like fair play. We like both sides to be given the same rules and to be given the same playing field. That's why we like football, right? You get both sides. College football is great. It's great. And over time, one team gets the ball on the 20, and then the other team gets the ball on the 20. And then whoever scores, that's how the game is going to end. If one doesn't score, but they both get an equal chance. So we believe in fair play. But that's not how history is written. History is written by those people. In fact, did you hear the latest presidential standings of the greatest presidents?
Oh, I heard
Trump
about it.
was the last.
Yeah.
But they had Biden at 16th. Okay? I mean, that's just propaganda.
Well,
That's just somebody on the liberal side or leftist side deciding their agenda. Okay, this guy is pro-life. Well, he's got to be way down there, because we all believe in women's choices. See, that's the bias. In fact, they're now seeing that all that AI bias is built in. So there you go.
Well,
here's how you're being programmed.
And kids are vulnerable to this. I remember I was cutting wood one day. I had a girlfriend come over. She brought her niece over. Her niece was about 5-6 years old. And I was cutting trees down, and the niece started crying. And I said, "What are you crying about?" "Well, you're cutting down the trees, and you know what my teacher..."
You're hurting that tree. That tree has feelings.
But here's what's scary about that. My teacher said that the red sky at night is pollution from all this stuff. Well, God, I thought, oh, Jesus, this teacher probably believes this.
Yeah.
Red sky at night. Red sky is pollution. No, this is ancient seafaring knowledge. Red sky at night, sailor delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor take warning, because what it is there's dust coming over the horizon, and if you got dust, if you got it red, that means there's dust in the air, and there's a storm coming behind it. I mean, whether that was true or not, that's how long this has been there. And our teacher's telling you, well, it's that red sky, which beautiful red sunsets are wonderful. But no, that's caused by our pollution, you cutting down that damn tree. So the kids are getting this. This is your children.
And I think people are waking up. People are getting educated. They're seeing there's something wrong. For those with eyes to see and ears to hear.
And a brain. Gotta have the brain.
I've talked to so many people who go, I think there was something wrong with the jab, but they weren't going to say that because they didn't want to get, some of the pushback from some of the friends, media, social media. But people are waking up to what's happening here in this country. In fact, I was just watching the other day something on MSNBC, and they're calling us the haters. They're going, "You hate America." No. If you love your child, you just don't let them do whatever they want to do. You discipline them. That's not hate, that's love. But the media thinks that because you criticize the administrative state, it's because now you're insurrectionist and you hate the democracy. No. In this republic, we never asked for these agencies to be our administrators and our legislators.
Unelected, by
They're
the way.
unelected. And the word, especially coined by, well, a lot of them, but Klaus Schwab, Klaus Schwab, Mr. Evil, self-selecting, enlightened individuals who will chart the course for the betterment of our humanity. That's kind of,
They know better than us.
well, that is the progressive message, started from Woodrow Wilson to here, that we're progressing, that we're getting more enlightened. I want you out there who are fair-minded, do you actually think you are getting more enlightened what you see around you? And frankly, both things happen. You know, during the 60s, it was tumultuous. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Vietnam War, SDS, Students for Democratic Society, blowing things up, protest, hippies, marijuana, you know. Remember that song from
We don't smoke marijuana in Muskogee.
Merle Haggard, you know, we don't smoke marijuana, you know, and our kids still obey the college dean, that we don't grow our hair long, you know, that's
I let my hair grow long. I didn't let my hair grow long until later.
I know. And so, but guess what? During that time, there was also the Jesus movement. So you do have the wheat and the tares, they grow together. So we're going to focus, especially if you want to have a good relationship, you want to focus on the wheat, but you got to pull up the tares. You know what I'm saying? You got to point that out. So there is a balance for always seeing the evil that's out there, but there is a lot of good, and there's a lot of people who are waking up and seeing, and you're seeing that now in school boards, you're seeing people getting active, and frankly, the establishment does not like that, because they think that now is an insurrection, that you're trying to dismantle our democracy. No, your version of democracy is one party, one system, just like here in California, where the Democrats rule everything. Okay? And did you hear the latest thing with Biden's economy? A couple of years ago, he had like 92 billion surplus. Now it's a $73 billion deficit. There's no opposing party to push back. Everything is rubber stamp pay.
You know what?
This is what happens when you have just one party rule. There's nobody to push back.
You know what makes me laugh is, well, you know, you have to laugh. Is Biden comes out and he says, well, you know, the price of, we've got inflation beat with our Bidenomics, and you know what? The price of eggs and bacon and everybody who buys anything knows that's not true, and he sat there and said it right to our faces. And
Well, they live in a bubble.
Well, I guess they must.
The most prosperous people, counties, are all around D.C.
Oh, of course they are.
They all give each other jobs, the lobbyists.
Well, you know what?
And frankly, it's both sides. You know, if you're a senator, your wife can be a lobbyist. There's no law that says your wife can't lobby.
Yeah.
In fact, you're making the laws that...
Well, that whole thing is incestuous anyway. Look at
Yeah, you're making laws, and if you know what certain law is going to be passed, well, you know where to go to buy real estate, what to invest in. The whole thing is a racket. Just like my hero, Smedley Butler, war is a racket.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have knuckleheads on Fox, General Keane. No, we gotta push back on the Russians, and you know, get even more forceful with the war. Did you guys hear what the average age of the Ukrainian warrior is?
No.
42.
Oh, really?
And now you're not going to hear this on Fox News, but now the citizenry is saying, "I'm not sending my kid up to be slaughtered there at the line." They want peace, but we won't let them because it's our colony.
Well, we have to make money.
Yeah. And they called Trump deranged by saying that was like our colony. It's like our colony, okay? We're treating it like our colony.
I heard that we're actually supporting a lot of their social services in Ukraine.
We are.
We're actually we're running two countries now.
They have to. We have our biolabs over there. They have a lot of natural gas resources. That's where our fertilizer and wheat. Oh, it's a land that's open for corruption, and our oligarchs here in the country, they love the fact that Ukraine is open for business. Open for business. So there's hope. I think there's hope.
You
A
know,
lot of people are waking up. I'm seeing that. I talk to people all the time. Even there was a gal when I told her that I liked the orange hair man. She almost turned around to go away. She might be listening to that. But as we started talking, there's a lot of the points that I mentioned that she agreed with.
yeah, people agree and don't know it.
Yeah, it's his personality. Guys from Queens, for heaven's sake.
Well,
How many New Yorkers do you like from Queens?
The problem is we're not trying to. Those of us who support Trump are not trying.
I barely like you, and you're from Newcastle.
Yeah, and you're an asshole.
I know.
So,
And you're an asshole.
anyway,
A hairy one. You know, little corn sticking by the hairs.
what? Anyway, I forget now. See, now now I don't know what I was going to say next. That's annoying when you do that.
That's why you can't handle somebody pushing it back at you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're the
got
one.
all
You're the
flustered.
one that can't handle. You're the one that can't handle it.
You're the one who got
Look
flustered.
at last week as an example.
That was the
you
noise.
You do a temper tantrum.
That was the noise. I hate the noise.
You need to adapt a little. You know, things don't go well. You just adapt.
I get irritated by your stupid
Well,
phone.
no, you just
we had a radio show, and his phone would go off all the time.
So would yours.
And finally, no, it didn't. Finally, I said before the show started, turn your phone off, and that I always had to remind him to turn his phone off. So I got a twitch last week, and I haven't even put it on because, frankly, I had my microphone.
Oh, he threw a temper tantrum.
I threw.
You threw a temper tantrum. Call it what it is.
I threw a temper tantrum.
Yeah, there we go. Now you admit it.
And I had the microphone, and you're just a crotchety old hooter, and so it just set me off. You know, sometimes when couples argue, a little thing will set them off, and it isn't that little thing. It's these past events that have led up to that little thing. So in the past,
you're just hard to get along with.
I've been married for 36 years.
Well, your wife is a saint, an absolute saint. Anyway,
there was a guy. His name is Billy Joe Shaver. He wrote a song, and he said something to the effect that I can only be me when I'm with you.
That's very profound or thick, one of the two.
Hey, I love you, Jana. Still hope for this man. That's it. That's our show.
Good.